we think might have joined us. Okay. Okay, board members, next we are moving right along. Bring your attention to item number 5, general consent calendar. Board members, at this time, this is a time where if there's something you want to pull off the general consent, we'll do that, and if you would reference the number, we'll go from there. Board member Jenny Earl.
Yes, could we pull off 5.14?
You know what? Before we do this, I failed to do something. Okay, we're gonna come back to this. Okay.
Okay.
We have on the public participation sign up. I neglected. I apologize to recognize Candace Penrod. Is Candace still here? We'll have you just come up to one of these mics, and my sincere apologies.
Oh, it's good. It's all good. Thank you. Okay. Thank you, Chair Huntsman. I appreciate your time, and Vice Chair Cummins and the school board. I appreciate your time today. My name is Candace Penrod, and I'm here representing our science community in Utah. I had the privilege and honor of serving on the Science Standards Writing Committee over the last year. And I want you to know that the SEED standards that were presented to you as they were when they came from the standards committee here, the review committee, are the standards that should be adopted. These standards were developed under the leadership of Ricky Scott. He followed all board procedures for standards revision. Mr. Scott selected scientists from every major university in Utah. He also found the finest science teachers and science educators to be on the committee. Each word, phrase, practice, cross-cutting concept was carefully chosen to convey the best ideas and concepts of science. Changes, additions, or deletions to these standards that deviate from accepted science practice and knowledge undermine science educators' ability to accurately and effectively teach science to Utah students. We respectfully ask you to trust our combined years of expertise in teaching and applying the scientific endeavor in our classrooms, labs, and under other learning environments. If any of you have any questions or would like clarity on any of the standards, we, the scientific community and Standards Writing Committee, would be happy to respond. We have been accused of having an agenda. Let me be clear, we do have an agenda. Our agenda is to bring the best we have to offer in science standards to the students in Utah so that they can be competitive in the scientific endeavor in our great state, in the nation, and in the world. Again, we respectfully ask you to adopt the SEED standards as presented to you from the Standards Review Committee. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, and again, my apologies. Okay, board members, we'll jump back to the consent calendar. Right now, I have one item, 5.14. Board member Jenny Earl's asked to poll. Board member Lisa Cummins.
Can I have 5.16, Utah Data Research Center research agenda polled as well?
Okay. I'm not seeing any other items to be polled. Oh. I am seeing something. Board member Lisa Ellis. So.
Can we just pull 5.15 also?
Okay. I'm not seeing any other items being pulled from the consent, so I'm seeking a motion to approve.
So moved.
Board member Belknap, do we have a second?
Second.
Yeah, motion to approve the second. We have a second. Discuss to the motion. Discussion to that motion. Vice Chair Brittany Cummins.
I just need to declare a possible conflict. One of the items on the consent calendar has to do with kindergarten grants, and I'm on the board of one of the schools that is receiving a grant. I don't receive any compensation for my service, so I don't think there's any conflict in my decision-making, but I needed to declare that.
Okay. Thank you. Any board members see any conflict or have a comment? Okay. So we'll vote on approving the consent calendar. All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed? Voting is unanimous. To speak to, I've got to quickly go through this. How many of these were in? 5.5 was in, or 5.14?
1.5, and what was the other one?
1.6. Did those go to the committee?
No.
All right. Without any of these, Scott? I recognize Deputy Superintendent Scott Jones before we start addressing.
Deputy Superintendent of Operations Scott Jones. We've just had some additional information provided to us in relation to the consent calendar, specifically the items dealing with your approvals of contracts. So Brian, can you relate this to him? We feel it's important to let you know before you vote, or approve the consent calendar, since these items weren't pulled necessarily for further discussion. So we feel it's very.
What's that?
Oh, you did pull the contract?
Voted up for it.
We missed it. They voted for it. So, but go ahead. Tell them.
Well,
Okay, hey, listen, hey, we're just one team, one mission here, so.
Right.
What is the concern?
Go ahead.
so, okay. We want to be transparent.
Brian, full name?
And so Brian Questenberry,
Okay.
Assistant Attorney General. So this is relative to item 5.2 on your general consent calendar agenda. And then specifically, it's relative to item number, let's see, this is USBE 1901201AA is, and it's the UEN contract. And that agreement is up for approval on the general consent calendar this morning. It is being modified to exclude Addendum A to Attachment A, which contains our standard data privacy provisions. We've discussed this with our data privacy experts, and they have approved UEN's request to have these provisions removed. In the spirit of transparency to the board, we just wanted to make sure that that's understood and not just assume that is understood. And so we wanted to make sure and bring that here to the board. Yeah, and if there's further information that's requested, our data privacy folks can add some more meat to the bones.
Okay, in light of that, we have a couple of questions or comments. Board Member Lisa Cummins?
I'd like to have a vote recalled. I'd like to recall this so we can discuss it more in detail. Why are they having us withdraw Section A, Amendment A?
And I will
Okay.
have to either
Tell me-
defer
Okay.
to Michelle
tell me how
or
to-
to the.
So why are they, is the question, are AAG Buse, are you going to respond to the question?
Yes, Michelle Buse, Assistant Attorney General. The reason that we withdrew it is because Adobe said that they are not, the UEN is not a party who will share any student information with Adobe. They are not a facilitator of sharing any of that information. The information will stay with the LEA. And so UEN felt like they didn't need to have that in their contract because they would not be a party to sharing any student information with Adobe.
Okay, a follow-up?
Thank you. So what is the harm keeping it in the contract? Because I'm worried of, future, it's not in the contract, so therefore we can scenarios. Why not keep it in the contract?
They just felt like that wasn't something that even comes up. It's not an issue because they don't receive any private information about students through UEN.
So they feel it's redundant.
They feel that it wouldn't happen.
Moved.
It's a moot point.
The LEAs hold the data.
So it becomes irrelevant.
Correct. So they're agreeing to something that they would never have to implement. It requires that they implement certain procedures and allow someone from our entity to have access to their records at any time. And there are some, I won't say burdens, but responsibilities on the other party in allowing us to access all of that information that they have, but they don't have any information for us to go and access. So to open that up and implement whatever procedures need to be in place, they don't need to do that because they don't have student data come to them.
Okay. Board Member Ellis, question or comment on this issue?
I think we need to vote on her thing to recall it. I mean, I don't know, I don't remember the process on that, but I'm failing to understand why we don't just leave it. It's not, if it's not hurting one way or the other, it's just an added protection for students because things change, philosophies change, trends move. How long is this contract for? Is it a year contract or what? A year?
Hi. Hi, Whitney Phillips, Chief Privacy Officer. And the reason that this is removed is at the request of UEN because they didn't feel it was pertinent.
Right, I understand. I just don't buy the argument that it's not, that it's going to hurt anything to leave it.
Yeah,
So that's all.
I think that's a fair question.
Yeah. Anyways,
Okay.
that's all. That is more of a
All right.
statement.
I think
So
there's some
thank
more
you.
questions here. Board Member Scott Hansen?
Just a question for those who are working on the contract. Is there a reason that we couldn't leave it in place but then have some kind of a clause that says if personally identifiable information flows to UEN, then these provisions they would have to comply with these provisions, but otherwise we wouldn't need to do that. I think that might be a clean fix for it.
Yeah.
And this is all good and healthy. Thank you, Scott and others for bringing this to our attention. So
Good morning.
I'd rather now than
Can I
later.
just
Go ahead.
say, I know my timing is just really off, but it's important, because to your point, Chair. Yeah, because
Yeah.
we understand how important data privacy is. And so the staff, forgive me for interrupting the flow here, but we just really felt it was important to let you know the minute we knew on the timing. So we're good.
We voted it.
Yeah.
We already voted for it to pass.
Right.
Yeah, it passed.
So it stands, I guess.
It's done,
Right.
as it is here, with the amendment in it.
Chair?
Yes.
All right, but what we can do, though, is we can always amend. We can always go back and we can amend and bring it back again, with the tune. Can we not do that? Can we not
Yeah.
do an amendment? Yes, so we will.
That's how I prefer to
we will
clean
do
this
that.
up.
So we're being very transparent that it was missing. We missed it until like about, 6 minutes ago. Okay, we're clear on that. We understand that the board has passed it, so now staff will go back and we'll go follow, if it's okay with the board, we'll follow Board Member Hansen's, lead or guidance on this and go back and get the wording changed and then bring it back again. It's a good process. Trust the
Okay.
process, we'll get there, okay? Yes, ma'am, so you can do that.
Okay.
You're not okay with that?
Are we going to
Well-
bring it back to the board meeting next?
Well, in August.
In
Right,
August.
to do that, because if we need the amendment, then we can do it, so they can start, right, under the conditions of the writing right now, but then we add the amendment and then go from there, right?
If I can make a clarification, the contract actually already says what Board Member Hansen proposed. It says UEN does not anticipate any student data coming into their possession, but in case, in the unlikely scenario that happens, addendum A shall apply.
So it's already there.
Can you direct us to where it says that? Oh, excuse
Board Member
me, Chair.
Hansen?
Pardon?
Apologize. I don't know that if we have the full contract here in front of us, but could you direct us to where that is in the
Sure.
contract?
So that language is in attachment B, scope of work, on the second page, just above the section identifying the contract contacts. And I can read the language aloud if that's helpful.
That's what I have.
It says UEN is an educational institution bound by the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, or FERPA. While UEN access to student records is not anticipated, to the extent UEN may obtain access to student records under this agreement or its agreement with Adobe, it agrees to maintain the confidentiality of those records in accordance with applicable laws and with the provisions set forth in the addendum to Attachment A.
Awesome.
I think, it sounds like we're good. No, we're good.
Oh,
No, it's just,
sorry.
okay.
Oh,
It's been pulled off, so we have to, okay. We've been speaking to no, not yet. Okay, no, it's never pulled. That one was never pulled. Okay, so we're moving on.
Thank you.
Okay. So I just have maybe a general question. We're asked to give direction on how to vote on behalf of the board. I'm just trying to understand, if we put it on the consent calendar, we're not really given direction, but is our direction, if I'm understanding this right, is asking the board's taxing entity committee representative to, I'm sorry, I'm on 5.14.
Okay,
So I'm just trying to
hang on.
clarify, am I
Oh,
going in the
Well, this
right?
one's on, and now I'm gonna, now
Are
we're
we
gonna
not-
go to the
did we
items
move
that are
on?
pulled, okay?
Sorry, I
all
thought we
right.
moved on to that.
Yeah, we're gonna get back on track here. So, we pulled 5.14, and that was Board Member Jenny Earl. Did you want to speak to that?
Yes, sorry, I thought we had
Okay,
moved on.
we're
I
good.
apologize, I'm sure that was confusing.
Hey,
So
whatever we do to move it
5.14, it just says that it says here that we will give, he needs direction on to how to vote on behalf of the board concerning the extension request. Are we just voting to give that, whatever the board's taxing entity committee representative, they're just going to make that decision, or are we making that decision? I guess that was I didn't understand exactly.
Recommended action.
There's a recommended,
And the action is that the taxing entity would make that decision?
okay, I'm catching up here.
Sorry, I guess I just didn't see the direction in
Okay,
here.
Miss Lorraine,
Okay. Just a clarification is really what I wanted.
okay.
So,
Okay, if you, sorry,
You're,
if you look at the recommendation in board docs, you have to look at the recommended action. The action on that is to authorize the finance committee to give direction to the board's taxing entity
Okay.
committee. So that's what action you took, is just to authorize the finance.
okay, that's what I was
committee.
just trying to clarify because it asked for board direction and then, okay. I just wanted clarification. Thanks. That's it.
okay. Deputy Superintendent Jones?
Chair, just to clarify, all of the backup documentations for it are in the Finance Committee's agenda for tomorrow. So any board member can access the Finance Committee agenda for tomorrow, the agenda items on there. So that, to the point, you're just authorizing that tomorrow when we meet and they come and present, that you see what they're presenting, and as well as the 5 Finance Committee members will have access to that as well, obviously. So just wanted to point that out, that all the backups are in the Finance Committee agenda. Okay?
Okay. So, Board Member Hanson, Linda Hanson?
So I would move that we would approve number 5.14 action to direct the Finance Committee to give direction to the board's taxing entity committee representative concerning the voting on the Brigham City EDA.
Okay, do we have a second? Any further discussion? Seeing none, let's vote. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed? Voting was unanimous. Next, we had 5.16. That was Board Member Lisa Cummins. Did you want to speak to that?
Yes. I'd like to know, the Utah State Board of Education recommends that the UDRC prioritize the creation of school and community resource asset map. Who on the Utah State Board of Education, or where is this coming from? Because this is the first I've heard of the the prioritizing of a school and community resource asset map.
Who wants this? Tiffany's coming, so she's going to answer the question.
Tiffany Stanley, Chief of Staff. So this is being brought before you for you to determine whether you agree that this be the research priority that you submit to the Utah Data Research Center as they consider their research agenda for the coming years.
If I may?
Follow up?
Yes. So what does, I see that the process of identifying school community assets helps members identify, leverage, expand, support new programs, or what is this including? Is it social emotional behavior? Is it accessibility? What is this about?
So this would just be data that the Utah Data Research Center already has readily available. They collect longitudinal data from several different agencies. It's generally like outcomes type data, but also they would be able to pull from like the Department of Health to identify available health resources, like whether you have a health center nearby a school type of thing. So it would just be readily available data that they have collected.
Okay. Superintendent Dixon?
Yes, thank you, Chair. So a couple of examples of this might be when I visited San Juan School District, there were comments made by one of the principals on how, I think it's IHC, it might be another clinic, but they brought a health clinic into the area of Montezuma Creek, and they were talking about how that had impacted student attendance. Mobility rates had decreased in the community, and it had brought more people into the community. And so it was having this community impact, but without being able to look at all these data sets together, how would they really know that? Like that was just some, I asked her if she had data, and she said, well, that's something that we've noticed. So the assets would be that you would look at that any community center they had, the health center that got brought in. So it might be determining what are those things in the community, for example, that help with intergenerational poverty. So instead of just thinking about the school or the health, how do you look at all of those factors together to determine where are the assets in that community that you can draw from? Another example would be the legislation around juvenile justice reform, and communities that bring all of those agencies together to support the family instead of just the school working at it seem to have better rates of keeping kids in school and lowering incarceration and having to draw on different welfare and government agency, what's the word I'm looking for, resources. So how this asset map would help look at all of these things across the state to say where are those positive attributes in the community that can support the family. That's just one example of data. But remember that UDRC is many data sources coming together that we're a part of. So we're then asked, as Tiffany said, to come to UDRC and say, what are your research priorities? But one of the things we don't know is where all of those things are in the community that we could help draw on to support families in the community on behalf of education.
Okay. Did you have another follow-up?
I do. So what is the end goal with all of this data? Does it then, are we then going to create more laws and expand government to, in the name of supporting families? Or is there an end goal of the data that is collected?
So I think the idea would be that that schools and principals would be able to access this online resource that would just contain aggregated de-identified data, but to better align their services and programs for students.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Board Member Ellis?
Thank you. Just a clarifying question. So the end result, you said, would be de-identified aggregate data, but the data they're using and already receiving, is this student level data?
So,
or aggregate?
I may need to turn to Whitney or Scott, because as I was looking at the statute, it specifies that it's de-identified, but I'm not sure.
De-identified is usually student level.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay.
Okay, Scott?
Well, that was the shortest answer.
I know. I'm really off today. I really am.
Okay. Board Member Davis?
I'm just amazed at how many people are unaware of the resources in their communities available to help them. And I will say, any person working in a school as a teacher or a principal, I can almost guarantee at least one time you have tried to research this on your own. And so, you know, instead of everybody out there trying to have to recreate the wheel, even in, you know, religious capacities or whatever, I've had so many people question what's available to help. And so I see something like this as being valuable, even just so that every person out there trying to do this right now isn't recreating the wheel. I mean, minus the data. They're not pulling everybody's data, but this would help kind of see what is available for certain areas that may have a higher need for some type of resource. So I think it's a good move.
Okay. I'm not seeing any other questions or comments on this 5.16. Is anyone wanting to move it forward? Board Member Hanson? Linda Hanson?
I would move that we would approve item 5.16, the Utah Data Research Center research agenda.
Do we have a second? Second. Board Member Newell. Discussion to approving this. Board Member Earl.
Yeah, there's not a cost associated with it. We're just prioritizing. Am I understanding that right?
That's how I see it.
We're just saying this is a priority. Do they not, and they've already have this information, right? I mean, they already have the information. It's just, they're just wondering if it's important to us to have the information.
It appears that they do, but yeah, just to say it's a priority.
Okay, thanks.
Not seeing any other discussion, so let's vote on approving off the consent calendar 5.16 Utah Data Research Center research agenda. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay, with the ayes, raise your hand, be recognized. Board Member Linda Hanson, Board Member Gravitt, Board Member Lear, Board Member Scott Hanson, Board Member Davis, Board Member Newell, Board Member Belknap, Board Member Cannon, Vice Chair Brittany Cummins, Mark Huntsman. Those opposed? To make sure you got those?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes? Okay. Okay, motion passes. Now we're on to,
I don't think so. He was dialing the wrong number, so I'm not sure he's redialed him.
okay.
Well, you could ask, I don't know.
Board member, is any board members on the line? I don't think, I'm not, I don't have a text saying that they are, so I've been watching that. Okay, now we're, 5.15 was pulled. Board Member Ellis, do you want to speak to 5.15? I don't see your light on. There you go.
Thank you. I just wanted it to be a separate vote. Anytime our board logo is used, it signifies support. And my concern is social emotional learning is the newest and latest trend sweeping across the country as the best thing in education. And when we only present one side of it, and then it has our logo on it, I mean, there are people that have concerns about this, and so that's all.
Okay.
I just wanted it voted separately.
Any other questions on 5.15? Thank you, Board Member Ellis. Superintendent Dixon?
Yeah, just the two speakers that will be there, I'm actually serving on a panel. There are others, and I mean, you can choose to put your logo on or not. Those are just invitational by by the, I always get the name wrong, Kim, I'm so sorry, Utah Charter Network, and the governor's office. And just a reminder that there was a pot of money, there used to be a Civic and Character Education Commission that was run out of the governor's office by the lieutenant governor. That commission was disbanded, and there are other initiatives, but there was money left over, so they put it to use around civic education, which is included in social and emotional learning. And the focus will be, I've got this somewhere. Sorry, Karen, you might have to come and speak to it. But basically, the two speakers were at NASB. So those of you that went to NASB would have heard these keynote speakers, and they were very good and really talking about civic engagement and very focused on self-awareness and your opportunity in the community and those kinds of things. So I didn't hear anything controversial from board members about their speeches, but I wasn't there, so I would defer to board members that might have heard these keynotes.
And Karen Peterson's actually here, board members. Did you want to, thank you for being here from the governor's office. I think you're probably here for more than one item, but I know this was of an issue. Did you want to pass some? Hang on. Well, hit it again. There we go.
Make sure they understand this is funded through the charter school.
Yes, please.
Yeah. I'm going to pass these real quick.
So Sid gave you a little bit of background there. The Civic and Character Education Commission went away this last session, but there was existing money, and we have found the best use of that money is to find existing conferences and infrastructure and kind of give them an enhanced budget, and also be able to broaden the audience. And so this was this conference specifically. It happens every year, but we thought we'd give it a little bit broader audience, and that was the big reason that we wanted to invite the Board of Education to put their logo on, because this is kind of in a charter-specific conference, but we would like to invite a broader audience to the conference, and I think that your logo says that this is for a broader audience, and so that's kind of how this came about. You'll notice a lot of the panelists are Utah educators. We're bringing people that have been doing a lot of work in this area to come talk. Superintendent Delaney, for example, in Iron County, they have done a lot of work on this area. So the presenters are going to be, on those panels, are going to be our Utah educators to talk about what this looks like in a Utah school. So.
Okay. Board Member Newell.
Thank you. I just wanted to speak to the importance of civility and the social and emotional learning for our society. And not understanding that, I think, is one of our critical issues we have right now in our environment. This is important that we actually back this and have people get there to educate themselves on what civility is, what the true civility is, what our society is, what we're building upon with our youth, and how do we interact with them based on the impacts that are hitting them right now on a daily basis. So I see this as a critical opportunity for us to learn as adults and be able to take this information back and impact our children in a positive way.
Okay. Thank you. Board Member Linda Hansen.
So I am in favor of this. I was on the Civic and Character Education Commission before it before it went away, which is kind of sad to me because we did a lot of great things, I thought. And so there is this pot of money left, and I think this is a good use of it. I was at the NASB conference. I heard these two speakers. I didn't hear them say anything that I thought was wrong or controversial at all. They were great speakers. So I'm going to go ahead and make a motion that we approve 5.15, the Civics Character Education Conference co-sponsorship.
We have a motion to approve 5.15. Is there a second? Second discussion to the motion. You kind of already spoke to it. So, Board Member Lisa Cummins.
Thank you, Chair. Arthur Brooks just recently came to the state of Utah, and he said that civility was probably the lowest form of interaction, right? And so we should learn to argue better and be more clear in our statements. I think civility lacks the truth to come out, because we're civil, right? We don't want to stir the boat. We want to, right? As a civic engagement, I think is different than civility. Civic engagement, what does that mean? Are we going to discuss that we are a democracy, or are we going to discuss that we are a republic? And what does that mean? Are we individual representatives of the individual, or are we a representative of the collective, which is a mob rule mentality that can take away the individual's right of expression? What does that? What does this mean? And are we creating safe spaces for social, emotional, behavioral learning? Just because you disagree, you're not, you're safe. You don't have to hear the other side, which is a lot of the discussion going on right now of free speech is in jeopardy right now, as well as freedom of expression and freedom of religion. So, I think I was very sad to see the character and civic education committee go away. I was really hoping to be on that committee because I think, my voice wasn't being represented as far as a character and civic engagement. Having gone through the naturalization process, having had to renounce my country, what does that mean to an immigrant to then say, I am actively engaged in civics. This is what it is. My voice is now being heard, or wasn't being heard before. I would like to see that impact happen more, because socialism is not just economics. That's just one component of socialism. So I would like to see more be brought out about that. So I think this is too heavy one-sided and not broad enough on another. So I'm concerned. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Board Member Janet Cannon.
Yes, I was at the NASB Legislative Conference and heard Timothy Schreiber give his presentation. It's entitled "A Nation at Hope," and his message was that having social and emotional learning taught to our kids is going to help them in their development, is going to help them with their social skills, which will help them with their employability. He indicated that 14 states already have social and emotional competencies in their standards. And one of his messages was to make sure that politics doesn't derail training our teachers to help our kids with these kinds of competencies. So I'm in favor of that and will be in favor of the motion.
Okay, the motion before the board is that the board approve the 5.15 Civic and Character Education Conference co-sponsorship, which was previously pulled from our consent calendar. I'm not seeing any other questions or comments, so let's vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? No. Okay, with the ayes, raise your hand, be recognized, which is Board Member Linda Hansen, Board Member Gravitt, Board Member Lear, Board Member Scott Hansen, Board Member Davis, Board Member Newell, Board Member Janet Cannon, Vice Chair Brittany Cummins, Mark Huntsman.
Is Laura's hand up or down?
Laura, with those that are opposed, we're going to get that one next. Those opposed, there was the 4. Do you have them? Okay. Motion passes. This, thank you.
Thank you, and you're all
Karen,
invited.
for say hello to the governor and staff, and you're welcome to stay for the day and into the evening if you'd like. Okay, this concludes our general consent